The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in Building C of Fort Bragg Special Operations Command, casting sterile white light across the polished linoleum floors. It was 11:47 p.m., and the corridors echoed with the distant hum of night operations. Staff Sergeant Liam Cooper pushed through the heavy security doors, his combat boots squeaking against the freshly mopped floor. "Great," he muttered, nearly slipping on the wet surface. "Cleaning lady strikes again." Behind him, his squad mates chuckled. They were returning from a late training exercise, exhausted and looking forward to hitting their bunks. But Liam's attention was caught by the figure methodically pushing an industrial mop bucket down the hallway ahead. Isabella Martinez moved with quiet efficiency, her gray custodial uniform hanging loose on her small frame. At 53, she'd been cleaning these same corridors for 8 years. Her salt and pepper hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore thick-rimmed glasses that had seen better days. To most people passing through these halls, she was invisible, just another face in the background of military life. "Watch this," Liam whispered to his friends, loud enough for Isabella to hear. "Hey, cleaning lady." "You missed a spot." Isabella didn't look up. She continued her work with the same methodical precision, wringing out the mop with practiced hands. Her movements were economical, almost tactical in their efficiency, though none of the young soldiers noticed. "I'm talking to you, Senora," Liam called again, his voice dripping with condescension. "Maybe if you learned English, you'd understand when officers are speaking to you." Private First Class Marcus Reed shifted uncomfortably. "Come on, Cooper, leave her alone." "What? I'm just trying to help her improve her work performance," Liam replied with mock innocence. "This is a military installation, not some street corner in Tijuana." Isabella finally looked up, meeting Liam's gaze with steady dark eyes. There was something in her expression that made him falter for just a moment, not anger or hurt, but a kind of calm assessment, like she was measuring him and finding him wanting. "I understand English perfectly, Staff Sergeant," she said quietly, her accent slight but noticeable. "Perhaps you should focus on understanding respect." Liam's friends laughed despite themselves, but he felt his face burn with embarrassment. Who was this cleaning woman to lecture him about respect? "Listen, lady," he began, stepping closer. "I don't know how things work where you come from, but here? Cooper." The sharp voice of Master Sergeant Elena Foster cut through the corridor like a blade. She emerged from a side office, her weathered face set in hard lines. "What's going on here?" "Nothing, Master Sergeant," Liam straightened. "Just having a conversation with the cleaning staff about proper procedures." Foster's eyes moved between Liam and Isabella. Something passed between the older women, a silent communication that Liam couldn't interpret. "Mrs. Martinez has been cleaning these facilities longer than you've been in the Army, Cooper," Foster said evenly. "I suggest you show proper courtesy to all personnel on this base." "Of course, Master Sergeant," Liam replied, though his tone suggested otherwise. Isabella returned to her work without another word, but Foster lingered, watching the young soldiers head toward their barracks. When they were out of earshot, she approached Isabella. "Everything all right, Isabella?" Foster asked quietly. "Children will be children," Isabella replied, not looking up from her mopping. "Some learn respect the hard way." Foster nodded, recognizing the wisdom in those words. She had known Isabella Martinez for years, had watched her work these halls with quiet dignity. What the young soldiers didn't know, what most people on the base didn't know, was that Isabella Martinez was perhaps the most accomplished person to ever walk these corridors. The next morning brought chaos to Building C. Alarms blared as emergency lights flashed red throughout the facility. Liam and his squad were jolted awake at 0430 hours, scrambling into their gear as orders crackled over the intercom. "All personnel to stations! Code Black security breach! This is not a drill!" In the command center, Colonel Samuel Harris paced behind banks of computer monitors, his jaw clenched with tension. Intelligence analysts hunched over their screens, fingers flying across keyboards as they tracked a massive cyber attack on military systems. "Sir, we've got breaches in 17 different networks," reported a young cyber warfare specialist, sweat beading on his forehead. "Whoever's doing this knows our systems inside and out." "How bad is it?" Harris demanded. "Bad, sir. They've accessed classified operational data, troop movements, even some of our overseas asset information. It's like they have a roadmap of our entire digital infrastructure. Harris slammed his fist on the desk. Fort Bragg was home to some of the military's most sensitive operations. A breach of this magnitude could compromise active missions worldwide, putting thousands of lives at risk. "Get me General Wright at the Pentagon," he ordered, "and wake up every cybersecurity expert we have on base." As the crisis unfolded, cleaning crews were ordered to evacuate all non-essential areas. Isabella Martinez calmly gathered her supplies from the command center hallway, but instead of leaving, she paused outside the secure door. She could hear the growing panic inside, the frustrated voices of analysts who were losing the battle against an unseen enemy. Isabella checked her watch. She had 15 minutes before the morning shift change. 15 minutes before someone might notice she wasn't where she was supposed to be. She made a decision. Using her master key card, the one that granted her access to every corner of the facility for cleaning purposes, Isabella slipped into an empty conference room adjacent to the command center. She pulled out her phone, not the basic model most people would expect from a cleaning lady, but a sophisticated device with military-grade encryption. Her fingers moved across the screen with practiced ease, accessing networks and protocols that officially didn't exist. Within moments, she had infiltrated the same systems the attackers were targeting, but from a different angle. She began to trace their digital footprints, following data trails through encrypted tunnels and proxy servers. Back in the command center, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Sir, they've just accessed Operation Sandstorm files," another analyst reported. "If they leak those coordinates—" "I know what happens," Harris snapped. "How much time do we have?" "At their current rate of data extraction, maybe 30 minutes before they have everything." The room fell silent, except for the constant clicking of keyboards and the low hum of cooling fans. 30 minutes to prevent a catastrophe that could span continents. Then, something changed. On the main display screen, red warning indicators began switching to yellow, then green. Data streams that had been hemorrhaging classified information suddenly stabilized. "What's happening?" Harris demanded. The lead analyst stared at his screen in confusion. "Sir, it looks like someone's fighting back. The intrusion is being systematically dismantled." "Who? We don't have anyone with this level of capability on base." "I don't know, sir. But whoever it is, they're not just stopping the attack. They're reverse engineering it, tracking the source." On screens throughout the command center, the cyber battle played out in real time. What had been a one-sided assault was now a masterful counterattack. The unknown defender moved through digital space like a surgeon, precisely cutting away the attacker's access while simultaneously hunting them back through their own networks. "My God," whispered one of the younger analysts. "I've never seen anything like this. It's like watching a chess grandmaster play against amateurs." Within 20 minutes, the breach had been completely sealed. More than that, the counterattack had provided detailed intelligence on the attacking organization, their methods, and their physical location. "Sir," the lead analyst called out, his voice filled with awe, "we've got everything. Bank accounts, real names, physical addresses. Whoever did this just handed us an entire terrorist cell on a silver platter." Harris stared at the screens, processing what had just happened. "Who was our guardian angel?" "Unknown, sir. The response came from within our own network, but I can't trace the specific terminal. It's like they covered their tracks as they worked." In the conference room, Isabella Martinez quietly powered down her phone and slipped it back into her pocket. She had 13 minutes to get to the supply closet and begin her normal morning routine before anyone might ask questions. As she gathered her cleaning supplies, she allowed herself a small smile. 8 years of watching, 8 years of listening, 8 years of being invisible had given her perfect knowledge of Fort Bragg's digital architecture. When the moment came, she had been ready. But her satisfaction was short-lived. Her phone buzzed with an encrypted message that made her blood run cold. "We know it was you, Neptune. Time to come home." Meanwhile, Liam Cooper was dealing with his own crisis. The security lockdown had lasted 6 hours, during which his squad had been confined to quarters with no explanation. Rumors flew through the barracks: terrorist attack, foreign invasion, nuclear threat, each story more outlandish than the last. When they were finally released, Liam was hungry, cranky, and looking for someone to blame for his discomfort. He found Isabella Martinez in the mess hall, quietly mopping the floor around the edges of the dining area while soldiers ate their delayed breakfast. "Hey, cleaning lady," he called out, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "Thanks for making us late for chow. Your people's little security party really screwed up our morning." Isabella paused in her work but didn't look up. "I said thanks," Liam continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Don't you think you should respond when someone's talking to you?" This time, several soldiers at nearby tables turned to watch. Some looked uncomfortable with Liam's tone, but none intervened. "Maybe she doesn't understand big words," suggested Private Jenkins, one of Liam's friends. "Try smaller sentences." "You're right," Liam grinned. "Hey lady, you, clean, floor, good, job." He punctuated each word with exaggerated gestures, as if speaking to a child. Isabella straightened slowly, her dark eyes meeting Liam's with that same steady assessment he'd seen before. This time, though, there was something else in her expression. Not anger, but a kind of profound sadness. "I understand perfectly, Staff Sergeant Cooper," she said quietly. "The question is whether you understand anything at all." Before Liam could respond, the mess hall fell silent. Every conversation stopped. Every fork paused halfway to open mouths. The massive double doors at the main entrance had opened, and through them walked a figure that commanded instant attention. General Theodore Wright, Deputy Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, entered the mess hall flanked by 2 aides and a security detail. His uniform was immaculate, his bearing that of a man accustomed to having entire rooms stand at attention when he walked in. "As you were," he said calmly, though his presence still commanded every eye in the room. But General Wright wasn't looking at the soldiers. His gaze swept the mess hall methodically until it found what he was searching for. When his eyes fell on Isabella Martinez, his entire demeanor changed. The general walked directly toward her, his pace quickening with each step. Conversations around the room dwindled to whispers as soldiers tried to understand what was happening. 10 feet away from Isabella, General Wright stopped. Then, to the absolute shock of everyone watching, he came to attention and rendered a crisp military salute. "Madame Neptune," he said formally, "it's an honor to see you again." The mess hall fell into complete silence. Liam felt his mouth fall open as he watched the most powerful military figure he'd ever seen personally show respect to the woman he'd been mocking for months. Isabella set down her mop and returned the salute with military precision. "General Wright, I was wondering when you'd find me." "The cyber attack this morning," Wright said. "That was your work, wasn't it?" "Someone had to clean up the mess," Isabella replied with a slight smile. Wright chuckled, then turned to address the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Colonel Isabella Martinez, retired, formerly known by the call sign Neptune. Some of you may have heard whispers of Operation Deep Current, the mission that prevented a coordinated terrorist attack on 17 major cities worldwide." He paused, letting that sink in. "What you probably don't know is that Operation Deep Current was a one-woman mission. Colonel Martinez infiltrated a terrorist network so completely that she spent 3 years living among them, gathering intelligence that saved millions of lives. When the time came for extraction, she chose to complete the mission alone rather than risk her backup team." Liam felt the color drain from his face. Around the room, soldiers who had barely noticed Isabella Martinez were now staring at her with new understanding. "The scars on her hands," Wright continued, "are from disarming improvised explosive devices with nothing but basic tools. The slight limp you might have noticed is from a bullet wound sustained while protecting civilian evacuation routes in Kandahar. And the reason she's been cleaning floors at Fort Bragg for 8 years is because we couldn't think of a better way to keep one of our most valuable assets safe and hidden." Wright turned back to Isabella. "But after this morning's display, I think your retirement might be over, Colonel. Isabella shook her head slightly. I like cleaning floors, General. It's honest work. I'm sure it is, Wright replied. But your country needs you to do more than clean floors. The organization that attacked us this morning won't give up. We need Neptune back in the field. And if I refuse? Wright smiled. Then I suppose I'll have to order more visits to Fort Bragg. Eventually, some young soldier's going to figure out that the cleaning lady knows more about military strategy than most generals. As if on cue, every eye in the room turned toward Liam Cooper, who was standing frozen with his mouth still hanging open. The general followed their gaze and raised an eyebrow. Staff Sergeant Cooper, isn't it? Wright said. I understand you've had several conversations with Colonel Martinez recently. Liam's throat felt like sandpaper. Yes, sir. No, sir. What the young sergeant is trying to say, Isabella interjected gently, is that he's been practicing his Spanish with me, very dedicated to cross-cultural communication. Wright nodded approvingly. Excellent. Cultural understanding is crucial in modern warfare. He turned back to Liam. I trust you've learned a great deal from Colonel Martinez. More than I realized, sir, Liam managed to croak. Wright clapped him on the shoulder. Keep learning, son. You never know who might be teaching you. As the general and his entourage left the mess hall, the silence stretched on for several long moments. Finally, someone dropped a fork, and the sound seemed to break the spell. Conversations resumed in hushed tones as soldiers processed what they had just witnessed. Isabella picked up her mop again and resumed cleaning, as if nothing had happened. Liam approached her slowly, his previous arrogance completely evaporated. Colonel Martinez, I need to apologize. For what? She asked without looking up. For being disrespectful, for assuming things about you, for being, he struggled for the words, for being an ignorant ass. Isabella smiled slightly. Ignorance can be cured, Staff Sergeant. Arrogance is more difficult, but you seem to be making progress on both fronts. Why didn't you ever say anything? Why did you let you what? Make assumptions based on how someone looks? Judge people by their job titles? Dismiss someone because of their accent? Isabella straightened and faced him directly. Because those are lessons you needed to learn yourself. If I had told you who I was, you would have only learned to respect rank and reputation. This way, maybe you'll learn to respect people. Liam nodded, feeling the weight of her words. What happens now? Isabella looked around the mess hall, at the soldiers stealing glances at her, at the space she had quietly occupied for 8 years. Now? I suppose I go back to doing what needs to be done, whether that's cleaning floors or something else entirely. She gathered her supplies and headed toward the exit, pausing at the door to look back. Staff Sergeant Cooper? Yes, ma'am. The floors in Building C could use some attention tonight, if you're looking for a way to practice that cross-cultural communication. As she disappeared through the doors, Liam stood alone in the mess hall, surrounded by whispers and stares. But for the first time since arriving at Fort Bragg, he felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. That evening, Liam reported to Building C with a mop and bucket. He found Isabella in the same corridor where their first confrontation had taken place, methodically working her way down the hallway. Colonel, he said respectfully, reporting for cleaning duty. Isabella looked up, surprised. You don't have to do this, Staff Sergeant. Yes, ma'am, I do, Liam replied. I've got a lot to learn about respect. Figured I might as well start with the floors. Isabella handed him a mop. Very well, but if you're going to clean with me, you're going to do it right. These floors protect some of the most important operations in the world. They deserve our best effort. As they worked side by side in comfortable silence, Liam began to understand that heroism wasn't always about glory and recognition. Sometimes it was about showing up every day and doing whatever needed to be done, regardless of who was watching or who understood the true magnitude of your service. 3 months later, Staff Sergeant Liam Cooper received orders for advanced cross-cultural training and assignment to a joint intelligence unit overseas. The recommendation letter, signed by Colonel Samuel Harris, praised his newfound maturity and respect for diverse perspectives. Liam never found out that the real recommendation had come from a cleaning lady who understood the value of giving second chances to young soldiers willing to learn. Isabella Martinez continued cleaning the floors of Fort Bragg for 6 more months before quietly submitting her resignation. Her departure was noted by few and remarked upon by fewer, but those who did notice reported that the hallways never quite seemed as secure after she left. The last anyone heard, she had taken a job as a school custodian in a small town in North Carolina. The principal there mentioned to friends that the new cleaning lady had an unusual way of noticing things, a talent for being in the right place at the right time when students needed help. But that, perhaps, is a story for another day. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Story Chronicles. Remember, extraordinary people walk among us every day, their greatest achievements hidden beneath humble appearances. If this story touched you, please subscribe and share it with others who might need the reminder that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear custodial uniforms and carry mop buckets. What story should we uncover next? Let us know in the comments below, and until next time, keep looking for the extraordinary in the ordinary.